Hello and welcome to Code Faster and Smarter. This is part of the Telerik DevTools Q1 2014 online conference. Today we're going to be talking about Telerik UI for Windows Phone and the Just family, which includes JustCode, JustTrace, JustMock, and JustDecompile. We're going to begin with getting your Windows Phone app to market faster. So how many times have you wrote code to remind users to rate or purchase your app? What about capturing exceptions? All of these are common functionality found in most professional apps, and with Telerik UI for Windows Phone they can be turned on with just a check mark. So end users can also be pretty demanding when it comes to the design of a mobile app. That's why we created design templates. With our design templates, you have a designer at your disposal with our built-in wizards. So the application building blocks are inspired by the marketplace environment, and they represent some of the must-have composite parts of a mobile application. Included in the suite is the trial reminder, which allows you to display a message inviting your user to purchase the paid version of your app or pay for premium content. The trial period can be tracked per day or per count of feature usages. Rate App Reminder helps your apps get more ratings by displaying a reminder message configured to run on a given period or for a given application usage. Implementing RAD diagnostics in your Windows Phone app enables you to receive crash reports, get specific debug and runtime information from your end users when an exception occurs. You can send this information through an email. Live Tile Helper allows users to add dynamic tiles with custom design and content based on the content of their applications. Tiles can be updated as frequently as you need them to be. Have you ever wanted your personal designer in a box? With Telerik UI for Windows Phone, you get 50 plus ready-to-use content and page templates created by our designer. From everything that includes charts and dashboards to about pages and many more. So you may be asking yourself, what's left for you to do? And that is simply filling in your app's content. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's take a look at a couple of demos, starting with application building blocks and then the design templates. Okay, here we are. We are inside of Visual Studio 2013. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to select our template called Telerik Windows Phone Application, and I'm just going to give this the name of Telerik WP App and then press OK. I'm going to leave the default components and select the next button. And from the project configuration wizard, I'm going to leave the default project type as a Windows Phone application. I'm going to get rid of the application bar. I am going to leave the about page. This is part of our design template, and then for our building blocks I'm going to make sure that there's a check mark placed on diagnostics to the trial application reminder and the rate application reminder, and then click the finish button. So now our project will begin spinning up. So if we take a look now underneath references, you'll see that the Telerik controls have automatically been referenced in this application for us. As well as we've created a folder called commands with a rate this app command, as well as a send an email command. Underneath images there's a company logo that's used in our about page. And then we also have a sample view model that is set up that goes to the about page as well. So from here, let's go ahead and let's open up our app.xaml.cs file. We'll adjust our window, and you can see that we will begin by taking a look at declaring a couple of different properties. So we have one for RAD diagnostics, to RAD trial application reminder, to RAD rate application reminder. And if we scroll down just a little bit inside of the app constructor, we can see where this starts to take place. So we first define an instance of the diagnostics component. We give it an email address, and then we initialize the instance. From there, we can do the same for the RAD trial application reminder, and we're going to set an allowed trial usage count to 30, and that's for 30 days. We're going to set the occurrence usage count to 2, so it's going to occur every 2 times the application has been run. We're going to simulate the trial for test and set that to true as well. And then under the rad rate application reminder, we're going to initialize that, and we're going to call that every 2 times. So with that being said, let's just go ahead and run the application as is, and let's see what happens. So we begin by seeing our trial reminder. Again, we're simulating that this is a trial application. So it says we have 29 times left. Do you want to purchase it? So if you hit yes, it will take you to the marketplace. Otherwise, it's just going to take you back to your main application. So we see our app is listed here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run this application again by selecting the app. So now we can see that for our rating of the application, and I'll just scroll down just a tad here, you can see rate reminder reoccurrence per usage count is set to 2. So on the second run of this application, it actually displayed this. So you can select yes and you can leave feedback, or you can select no and you will not leave feedback. So we could make a quick modification if we would like to. So I'm going to stop the app. So going back to our application, we may want to go ahead and add in some code that's going to allow the users to skip further reminders. So we can simply change this property on the rate reminder to .allow users to skip further reminders to true. We can do the same thing for the trial reminder. So now if we run the application again, then we will see that you have the option to do not show this reminder again. So we could add that, turn that on or off. I'm going to select no there. One thing that I haven't showed you yet is the design template. So we have an about page that has already been added. So once I click on about, this is an example of the design templates. And so from here you can see you can modify things such as the application name, the version number, the description, about information, and much more. So you would simply take this XAML file and you would modify it to fit your needs. So you may be wondering how the reminders are actually wired up. And you can go into the main page.xaml.cs and you'll see that there is a trial reminder.notify as well as a rate reminder.notify method. And for example, if this application or a similar application were to crash, then the user would see this screen. And if they hit the yes button, then they could actually send a detailed crash log to the developer, which looks like this. So you can see that it gives information such as the exception message, the stack trace, the number of app runs, as well as there is a property that you can turn on for the screenshot base 64 string. And if you copy and paste the string, at the bottom of the email you'll actually get a URL that you can go to decode the screenshot. So you can get a screenshot of exactly what the user sees. So I'm going to navigate to that page. I'm going to paste in my base 64 code, and then I'm going to set decode and then export to a binary file, and then click on the convert the source data, and then we'll just go ahead and select the open button. And this is an example of where the crash actually occurred in the application. And one thing I'd like to explore a little bit more in detail is the design templates. So you can right click your project, select add, and then go new item, and then go Windows Phone. And under Windows Phone you'll see the variety of design templates that are available. So you can see we have an expanding list here. We have one with the grid layout theme, as well as different types of pages for maybe a checkout form, a how-to form. There's search, sorting, and filtering, as well as tables. So thank you so very much for watching, and I've listed a couple of resources here. Obviously you would want to check out Telerik UI for Windows Phone 8 by navigating to telerik.com and /products/windows-phone.aspx. We have a design template page that you can find once you arrive on our landing page for Telerik UI for Windows Phone 8, as well as there is more detailed information on the application building blocks. Now over to James with code at the speed of light with JustStar. James?
Thanks, Michael. As Michael mentioned, my name is James Bender, and I'm a developer advocate with Telerik. Today I'm going to talk to you about coding at the speed of light with Just. The Just products are 4 tools that are designed to make you a faster developer. JustCode is a plugin for Visual Studio and offers you things like enhanced navigation, refactoring tools, static analysis, templating, and an integrated test runner. JustMock is an easy-to-use yet fully featured mocking framework, and JustTrace is a tracing and profiling tool especially designed to help .NET developers. And as always, we have JustDecompile, our fast and free decompilation framework. I have a lot I want to show you today, so I'm going to jump right into the demos. We're going to start the demo by talking about templates in JustCode, specifically file and code templates. Templates are great because they help automate some of the tedious, repetitive work we occasionally have to do as software developers. So in Visual Studio, I'm going to go to the JustCode menu. I'll open that up and go to the Options window. I can see here I have an entry for file templates. When I open that up, I can see I have a list of various templates here. I have name, content language description. The name kind of tells me what it is. The content language tells me which language that template is written in. Some are C#. I've got some VB, a couple in HTML, CSS. We even support less. And I also have a description telling me what that is so that a developer that on my team wouldn't have to necessarily open that template and try and figure it out. If I click on one of these, I can see I get a little preview window here with some of the code from the template. I also have some options up here. If I want to make a copy of a template and make a couple little changes to it, maybe I want to create a template that's very similar to this one, I can clone it, make my minor little changes, save the name, and save it. It saves me from having to retype the whole thing all over again. I can also import and export templates, so if I'm on a team, we can share templates around the team. I'm going to hit Edit to open this template up, and I have a name here. This is TBS model. TBS stands for Telerik Backend Services. I also have a description here explaining what this template is supposed to do. In this case, it's going to create a model for Telerik Backend Services. I have a default file name. That will make sense in a couple seconds when I show you how this works. And then in the content window, I have my template. Now, this looks similar to code. I have some code here. Clearly, this is a using statement, namespace. But I have these other things in here, this $1, $2, $3. Those are essentially wildcards or placeholders, so that when I execute this template, those are going to be populated with dynamic data based on how I'm executing the template and what input I'm giving it. In this case, for the namespace, it's going to invoke the suggest namespace method, which is going to suggest a namespace based on where the file is located. I'm also going to have the option of selecting from the 4 various scope types for C#, and it's going to suggest the file name for the class here. Now, since this is for support Telerik Backend Services, I have this class inheriting from the data item class. This is a C# template. Obviously, if I wanted to do it in VB, I could as well. I'd have to change the content to match the VB language. I'm going to hit cancel to back out of this. Now, that's a file template, and you'll see what that looks like in a couple minutes. I also have code templates here. Now, if I select code template and I drop this little caret down, I can see this is the general tab, and I have a few options I can set here. I can change how I want the acronym to be expanded. I'm okay with shift space for now. I can also import and export these templates. Again, that's great if I'm on a team and I want to share. In this case, I want to see the C# one, so I'm going to select C#. And all my templates are listed here. I have an acronym, which is the key combination we use to invoke them. Type. We have 2 types of code templates in JustCode. We have insert, which basically inserts a piece of code wherever you put the cursor. And we have surround with, where you select a block of code and the template essentially wraps it. And again, we have a description here so that you don't need to look at the code to try and figure out what the template's doing. Now, the other side of my Telerik Backend Service template suite here is I create the entity, then I need to create various properties on it so that it can be populated. And that's what I'm doing here. The code runs off the preview window a little bit, but we can get an idea what it's doing. If we want to see more, we can hit the Edit button. And I can see this is the acronym. I set that here. I have my description. And then this is my text or my content. You can see, again, it looks very similar to the file template. I have what looks like C# code in here. And again, I have these crazy $1, $1, 2, and 3 things. What those are basically input points, where when I invoke this template, JustCode is going to ask me for input for each one of these numbers. It's going to go in order 1, 2, 3, and I can reuse them. You notice I have a 1 here and a 1 here. That means whatever I put for the value here is going to be replicated here. And I just basically go through and fill out this template, and it will go ahead and create this property for me. The other side is this availability section over here. Sometimes I want to be very careful about where these properties, or rather where these acronyms or these templates get invoked. Sometimes it makes sense to be at a namespace level. Sometimes you want to be inside a member body. In this case, I'm creating a property in a private member variable, so I want this to happen inside a class, but not within a method. So I'm going to keep the @type level. But this helps me regulate where and how these templates get run so they're not being run in an inappropriate place. Go back out of here again. Now to invoke the templates, we're going to invoke the file template first. I'm going to go to this entities folder and I'm going to create a product entity. So I'm going to do Control-Alt-Insert, and I have a list of available file templates here. I'm going to use the arrow button to go down to TBS model and hit enter. This was the default class name when we created the template. The expectation is you're going to replace the part of the name before the extension with something more meaningful, and I am going to do that. I'm going to call this product because that's what it's going to represent. And I have this little window here to help me navigate through the template. In this case, it's suggesting a namespace. I'm okay with that namespace, so I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And there I have my class. It worked out just like I wanted. I have my namespace. I have my data item inheritance going on here. So my file template worked great. Now I want to invoke my code template. So and that was, if you recall, the acronym was BS prop. So I'm going to type that, then hit shift space. And again, I get this macro expansion. I have my little help menu here. I can fill in my values here. I can type string. I'm going to call this product name. For the member variable, that's the naming convention I like. For the property, I'm going to call this product name, but I'm going to use the property naming convention. And now that I'm done, I'm going to hit enter. And you can see this went ahead and filled this out for me. I put string in here as part of my template, and it replicated down here. For EverLive or Telerik backend services, I need to invoke this onProperty changed when a property value gets changed. So by typing it in here, it copied it down here for me. This is a great strength of a template. Not only was this fast, I mean, if I have to do this 20 times in a class for an entity, it's going to take a while. The templates make it faster, but also I don't run the risk of typing this incorrectly and creating an error in my application. So that's how code and file templates work in JustCode. So next I'd like to talk about some of the refactoring features of JustCode, and to do that I've created this shipping service class. It's a very simple class. It's only got a few methods, but you'll notice it doesn't derive from an interface. Especially if you're doing test-driven development, interfaces are kind of important. So I'm going to go ahead and pull an interface out of this class using JustCode. I'm going to hit Alt-Tick to bring up the JustCode menu, Visual Aid menu, and under Refactor I'm going to select Extract Interface. I could use Control-R, Control-I hotkeys to bring this up, but for today I'm going to go ahead and use this Visual Aid menu. I select Extract Interface. You get this dialog. You can see it's suggesting a name here, iShipping Service. I could change that if I wanted to. It's going ahead and created it in a new file for me, but if I uncheck this, it would add the interface to the bottom of my existing file. Sometimes that's preferable, but today I'm going to go ahead and have it just create it in a new file. And you can see it has all my public methods here listed with a checkbox next to them. I can select specific methods to extract to the interface or not, or I can use this button to select all the public methods, which is what I want to go ahead and do today. I'll click Finish. You can see JustCode has created this new iShipping Service interface class for me with all my public methods pulled out with their prototypes. And if I go back to shipping service, I can see my class now implements that iShipping Service interface. So looking deeper into this class, I can see I have this compute shipping cost method here, which does some math and some logic to figure out what the customer shipping cost should be. And I want this method to be able to compute that, but as you can see here, this method's kind of long, and it's violating the single responsibility principle a bit here. I have a little bit too much of an intimate knowledge of how my customer level discount's computed, and same for my zip code modifier down here. Now I want these algorithms to be used as part of the method of computing this cost, but I really want to pull those out to other methods. So to do that, I'm going to highlight this block of code. I'm going to bring up the Visual Aid menu in JustCode by hitting Control-Tick, and under that I'm going to select Refactor and Extract Method. I hit Enter. It's pulled that code out. I can see it's very similar to how the templates work. It's prompting me for a name. I've got my little help box down here to let me know what my current options are. I'm going to go ahead and call this Compute Customer Level and hit Enter. And I can see that it's pulled that method out to here. So I have all the logic here, and it was smart enough to figure out what arguments I needed and to populate my call back in my normal method with the values it was going to need. So now let's do that with zip code. Again, we highlight the code. We bring up the Visual Aid menu, select Refactor, select Extract Method, and we'll call this Compute Zip Code Modifier. Hit Enter, and it's pulled that out for us as well. Now I went ahead and wrote some unit tests for this beforehand. I want to make sure they still pass, just to make sure we haven't broken anything. And we can see that they all still pass, so great. This is very helpful. I was able to help this method. This method's obviously much smaller now, much easier to read. I was able to do it quickly, and I was able to do it relatively safely with the JustCode refactoring tools. Next, I'd like to demonstrate some of the integration between JustCode and JustMock. I have a new solution here, and in that solution I have a class called MyDomain Service, as you can see here. As you can see, it has a dependency on something called IMyInterface. That's simply an interface here where I've defined 3 methods. I'm going to open this class, which contains a unit test I've started. You can see I have a declaration here of an IMyInterface mock. I want to create a mock of that interface to pass to my code under test. When I'm creating a unit test, I need to do an arrangement, which basically consists of creating the mock and then arranging whatever methods on that mock that I would like to mock out. This can be a little tedious, and JustCode and JustMock integrate together to help automate some of this. I put my cursor in the declaration of the mock I want to create, and I hit Alt-Tick to bring up the visual aid menu. Under the code menu, I have an option for Create Mock, which I'll go ahead and select. And as you can see, JustCode has expanded out a template to create that mock for me. But I still need to arrange the methods, so I'll hit Alt-Tick again, and again in the code menu, I'll select Arrange Mock. This brings up a dialog that lists all the methods that are defined on that IMyInterface interface. I can choose to mock specific methods, or I can choose to mock all of the methods. I'm going to go ahead and select them all this time and hit Finish. JustCode has gone ahead out and expanded some other templates to build some basic arrangements for these methods. This can be a huge benefit for me if I have to mock something that has a lot of methods, or if those methods are a little complex. Next, I'd like to talk about AutoMocking. To do that, I'm going to pin the Solution Explorer open again, and I'm going to show you this class under test class I've created. And you can see here this has 2 dependencies, a dependency on iFirst dependency and iSecond dependency, which are both just simply interfaces. AutoMocking is helpful in situations where you have classes with multiple dependencies. Now, in this case, 2 isn't very bad, but there are cases out there where you may have 5 or 6 things that your class under test is dependent on. Sometimes mocking those out, as you can see in this unit test here, can be a little tedious. Now again, with 2 it doesn't look so bad, but imagine if this was 6 things. You have to create a lot of mocks for things that you may not even care about in this test. It may not even be used by the particular method you're testing, but you still have to create the mock in order for the test to pass, in order for it to even compile, frankly. This is the example without AutoMocking. As you can see, I have 2 mocks that I'm creating here, and I'm passing them in to the constructor class under test. The rest of the test is pretty simple. It's probably things you've seen before, so I'm not really going to get deep into it. With AutoMocking, I'm using what's called a mocking container, and in this case what I'm doing is I'm creating a mocking container for my class under test. So this is a little bit different in that I'm not creating a mock for a dependency, I'm actually creating something based on the class I want to test. When the time comes to actually arrange my mock, what I'm doing is I'm arranging a mock on the container. Remember, the container is what's containing the class I'm testing. In this case, what I'm saying is I want to make an arrangement on whatever is going to be passed in as the dependency for the iSecond dependency interface. The rest of this just looks like a normal arrange with JustMock. I'm saying for getString I want to return this canned result. The difference here is, if you'll notice from the first one, I had to create a mock for the first dependency, which I didn't really care about because I wasn't using any of the methods on it. Down here, I don't have to do that. The container is going to go ahead and create that for me. When I call container.instance, it's going to create that container. It's going to see that I have an arrangement for the second dependency, and it's going to create that mock based on that arrangement. It's going to see that I don't have any of the other dependencies arranged, so it's going to create default mocks and inject those when it creates the class. The result is I can still test this class, but I don't have to write a bunch of mocks for dependencies that I don't necessarily care about. That makes dealing with classes with lots of dependencies much easier and faster. Now I'd like to talk to you for a moment about future mocking. Future mocking allows us to mock static dependencies in classes. For example, in my order service, I have a dependency here on customer service. Well, if you notice in the constructor, I'm not passing in an instance of customer service, I'm instantiating it within the constructor. This creates a static dependency and makes it very hard to test. For example, in my getCustomerName, I am using that service, but if I can't mock it, it makes it very difficult to test that method. By using future mocking, I can get in there and I can inject my own code via an arrangement into that dependency. And here's how it works. I create my mock of my customer service the same way I normally would, and I arrange it largely the same way I normally would. I have my method, I have the expected input, and I have the output I want it to send back. The difference here is I have this ignore instance clause in the middle. And what that's doing is it's telling JustMock, when this test gets run, I want you to interrupt whatever's happening there, even if it's statically bound, and inject this arrangement into that method. Now, the thing to keep in mind with this is not part of the JustMock Lite product. This is part of JustMock Commercial, and you need to have the profiler running. If we run our test here, and we can see that our test is passed. So if you can see the future mocking, it helps us with some of the projects where maybe dependency injection wasn't used to be able to get in there and mock that code and write good unit tests. I'm going to conclude today's discussion of JustMock by showing you mocking by example. Mocking by example can be very handy in situations where you have some complex class hierarchies. For example, I have this iInstall info that I'm mocking here. Specifically, I'm mocking the install packages property, which returns a list with 2 packages in it. The problem I run into is that this class hierarchy is pretty complicated, and it's not returning me values based on method calls, it's returning values based on properties. And some of these values aren't even from the properties of iInstall info. It's a property of iInstall info. And traditionally, to mock these, I have to create a lot of mocks and arrange them to return each other. It gets very difficult to read, very tedious to write, and a nightmare to maintain. JustMock provides mocking by example, which you can see down here. In this case, I'm creating a mock for iInstall info, and I'm arranging it to return a list of iInstall package when the install packages property is used. I'm also using the create like down here to actually create the mocks that I want to be in the list. And unlike having to create a bunch of mocks and chain them together before, I can simply tell JustMock what I want each value to be. In this case, I want package.installer.name to be blocked 1, and I want package.installer.blockingCondition.name to be foo. I didn't have to create those nested properties and chain them together. I was able just to tell JustMock how I want those to look, and behind the scenes, JustMock is creating and arranging those mocks for me and setting them all up and returning the completed mock at the end of the process. It makes it much easier to write complicated mocks like this, and much easier to maintain. One of the great new features in JustTrace is the ability to profile unit tests. What I've done here is I've created a very simple unit test that's going to run a Fibonacci sequence. I'm going to go ahead and pin open the unit test window, and you'll see on the Explorer window, I can select my test, and I have this icon that looks like an arrow with a little blue clock. I'm going to go ahead and click that to profile my test. Now I'm going to select a profiler type. JustTrace has 2 types of profilers, a performance profiler and a memory profiler. The performance profiler will measure CPU usage, and the memory profiler will measure memory usage. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and stick with the performance profiler, so I'll leave that selected and I'll hit the profile button. I can see my unit test is starting, and JustTrace is starting up as well. And I can see my unit test is passed. I'm going to go ahead and close this window. I'm going to go ahead and collapse this ribbon because we don't really need it. I can go ahead and go to all threads, and I can see everything that's happening here. In this case, I can see my Fibonacci test is right here. By clicking on that, it will take me to the source to show me what's happening. We color code the lines of source so you can kind of see where some of the issues might be happening. So you can see we have some red in there. We go down here to do work, and you can see this is actually going to take us down to the deep level where we can see the code that's executing. And here we see various shades of pink. Some of these operations are taking longer than others. So I hope you enjoyed my presentation on the Just tools today. If you'd like to learn more, obviously Telerik.com is a great place to start. We also have a great support site where you can find plenty of information about all the Telerik products, and you can see the link there. Each product has its own individual page. If you'd like to learn more about a specific product, you can definitely go to that page and learn more about that particular product. And on behalf of Michael Crump, I'd like to thank you for attending today. Please stand by for the next presentation. Thank you.